So let me begin this session with a small little story and a disclaimer. That this story is actually based and inspired by true events. And it goes way back in 1855 when for the first time Fatal Accident Act was written. And believe you me, yes, even before the independence era, this concept started. So now today we are talking about EX in the future of HR. How this story since then to now has moved forward. If we understand that, we will be able to understand very clearly what is the impact of EX in future. So up till 1990, I would say it was an era of utility. When I say utility, that means because of industrialization, a lot of people were trying to figure out how to produce and what to produce. We've all heard stories of Henry Ford and so on and so forth. And HR was playing a very, very critical role at that point of time of a timekeeper, making sure that at least production starts on time. The era then after that moved forward, and the second era which came is productivity, that produce but produce in bulk. And that era lasted till almost till 1990s or early liberalization, what we have seen in India. And then came the second era, which is this during that time, because productivity was at its peak. The HRD concept came into existence. So a lot of people from timekeeper became welfare officer, then became personnel managers, and then started calling as HRD manager. The concept you will be very, very familiar with, and that's why the productivity was at the peak at that point of time. From 1990s up till 2010, lot more been talked about in IT, innovation, and engagement become difficult because you have taken care of hygiene, you have taken care of productivity. Now people were getting burnt out. So we said that engagement is the buzzword. HR business partners, a lot of new title came in HR, and that's how the concept started. 2015 onward, if you look at it, this entire buzzword of employee experience all began. And it actually stems down to the fact that if there is a customer experience, then why not employee experience? And as Stephen Covey very well said, treat your employees exactly the same way as you want them to treat your best customers. And the entire concept was then tossed around and started, and a lot of authors like Jacob Morgan and authors like Josh Bersin, they started writing about employee experience, and employee experience then came as a full stream phenomena. But what employee experience has done, it has confused a lot of people at the same time because there is too much of technology, too much of infusion happening at the same time. And that brings also to my first question to Vishpal. That today so much is happening around in the world, AI, machine learning, so on and so forth, Industry 5.0, Web 3.0. There's so much of technology which is there. And the infusion of technology, because we want to give people an individualized and personalized experience exists. But how do we ensure belongingness when there is so much happening all around and authenticity? So what's your view on that?
Sure. Thanks, Raj, and happy to be here. So I think it's an interesting question, and I was thinking about this, right, as you set context. Firstly, is technology changing the way we're doing work? And I think there is a lens to the employee as well as the organization, because we have so many booths outside, right? Did we have these booths 10 years ago? I don't think so, right? We went to conferences, we sat on tables, and we came out. So technology is here to stay. So for all the guys who are pitching your products, I mean, they're relevant, right? So I think, is the employee experience getting impacted or is getting influenced? Again, the answer is probably yes. Because if you think of simple things, earlier, how would you gauge employee satisfaction? You would probably send a survey on a periodic, basis, versus now you have like cool things. Oh, just tell me your sentiment today. There's a lot of data that I think organizations are privy to. So I think your question specifically is around inclusion, right? Like how do you ensure personalization, but yet how do you balance inclusion? And I have a funny story here. It has nothing to do with HR, but yesterday I was watching this Comicstan or whatever on Amazon Prime, and one of the comic actually says in stand-up comedy, right? You need to crack a joke, you need to make people laugh, you need to not offend the government, the parent community, the audience, and it's a very difficult balance. But the good news for us in HR is this balance of personalization, right, with inclusion, I think is absolutely possible. And just to probably give you some examples, right? So what do you mean by personalization? So if an organization has so much access to data, needs, preferences, I think in the earlier panel we heard about generations. I think it is the obligation of the organization to provide choices, to make it flexible, and then to leave that decision to the employees. But where does inclusion come? Inclusion comes because we're 5 people here. All of us have different preferences, but as long as you have something that caters to our requirements and you're not forcing me to take it, right? So I think that's the balance. So for me, inclusion will come through transparency, inclusion will come through clear communication, and inclusion will come through access for all. So personalization, yes, but you have to keep this in mind.
I agree. 6 months back, just 6 months back, we were talking about great resignation. 6 months down the line, we were talking about recession and how to deal with people, the same set of people that we were trying to retain. Now there's so much of layoff that we're hearing. And my next question stems from that fact that there is so much change that is happening in today's world. And this change is work models are different, hybrid workplaces, people are coming to office, some still working from home. So in such kind of environment, Natasha, my question is to you. As your organization, how do you ensure and upkeep a superior employee experience, but at the same time, how these economic impact that are happening, how do you create that model for your organization as CHR?
Thanks Raj. It's a pleasure to be here. And thanks to the organizers for having me here. So employee experience, I think, is a topic very close to our heart. And I can say that very confidently for all the HR practitioners here as well. And what I'm going to speak about today is going to be very simple facts, something that we very strongly believe in as an organization, the organization that I'm very proud to be part of, Sopra Banking Software. And, the first and foremost aspect about employee experiences, creating experiences not only when the employee joins, but also when the employee has been part of the company and also at the time when the employee leaves or decides to leave the organization. And how do you create a gamut of experiences not only with the HR team, but have a task force which also has enabling functions that can give the experience that the employee expects. From an organization perspective, a lot of things, and I'm going to go through, a couple of my notes that I mentioned here when I was reflecting back on a lot of things that we do. One of our core values is people. People are in the center of everything we do. We are a technology company, we are a software company, but people are the core for everything we do, and that is one of our core values. I think create a culture where the employees feel valued. Nothing that you don't know. I think all of us really endorse this as HR. It's very important for people to share their opinions freely, and it should feel that their opinions count. So we've also embraced technology. So we do have these pulse checks that you also spoke about, and we do that every 2 months, followed by an annual survey, which is Great Place to Work. And what we do with this is we go back to the teams with the pulses that we have from the employees. I think it's very important as leadership team for us to be very transparent, authentic. It's important for us to go and share, this is what you've told us, this is what we can do, this is what we're not able to do, and explain why. I think that's very important, and that's kind of led us together, to build a strong company that we are today. The second thing is design reward and recognitions programs which inhibit or exhibit the right set of behaviors, okay, and fosters positivity. One of the things that we've also done when we designed the reward and recognition program was to have employees as part of the design in the program when we were designing it. And that really helped us a great deal with getting feedback. Like when we design a product, we go to our customers here. When we're designing an HR policy, I think it's very important to have the custodians of the policy, HR teams, and the users of the policies as employees to be part of the decision making. So that's worked very well for us. The third, of course, and some of it is health and wellness. We did speak about this I heard, some bit of it in the last panels as well. We do have, technology that we've embraced again on the health and wellness side, where being a global company, we have a lot of challenges that we collectively are a part of, across geographies. Celebrate events, celebrate moments. I think it's very important for us to also celebrate successes. Take care of your employees. Managers have to be sensitive to the fact that, in a hybrid world, we all are offering flexibility. We've just gone to a new facility, and we are also designing the facility to cater to the needs of how do I take care of the employees who are not in office today, and how do I also address employees who are in office today. So we're also designing workplaces to keep in mind both the aspects of hybrid together. So in a nutshell, if I were to summarize, I think it is giving employees a safe place to work, a healthy place to work, a healthy pace of work with respect to work-life balance, and of course designing all our policies and giving meaningful assignments and challenging assignments to our employees where they feel valued.
Agree. Future is sometimes a reflection of what has been in the past and what's happening in the present. In the present, we are hearing so many terms like moonlighting, career cushioning, quiet quitting. What's your view, Aarti, in near future? How's the employee experience going to look like in the future workplaces?
Sure. Thanks, Raj, and thanks for having me here. So there are a lot of terms that you spoke of, and yeah, some of them are new. But when I reflected back on it, are they really new? Are these things not experienced by HR as such, by organizations as such, by employees as such? So taking it one by one, career cushioning. So when we talk about career cushioning, it's about, creating a plan B, creating, a backup, so as to say, of what if there is recession? What if there is unpredictability? And we saw like the epitome of unpredictability with COVID. So, don't we always do that? I mean, some of us sitting in the room over here, why are we here if we ask ourselves? Aren't we here to try and understand what's new, what's happening? How can I, upgrade myself? How can I learn new things? This host of the booths that you see outside, you're all here to find out what is it that I can take back here and add value to myself. So career cushioning as a term, I think we've kind of, I would say, overrated it. But at the end of the day, all of us have a plan B in mind, 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line. Quiet quitting. We will always have employees in our organization who have been chronically disengaged. There will be people who will be sitting at meetings who will not participate. They will be absolutely quiet. They are definitely none of you who are over here. Unless you are here to escape office and boss, you are not quiet quitters, right? But a quiet quitter will not come out and participate in anything which is not necessary. He'll just do the minimum expectation of the job. Least time, least effort, and least enthusiasm. So those are some of the aspects which are defined by a quiet quitter. Didn't we always have them in our organizations? Yes, a small segment definitely was always there. So now how do we deal with them? And I think that was the question. Now how do we actually deal and bring out a better employee experience with, say, a quiet quisher or a quiet quitter? We need to do, I think, some of the things which Vishpala and Natasha have already said. It's the same thing, probably wrapped around by giving a better employee experience to our employees. Building trust, trying to match the employee's aspirations and the company's expectations. That's the sweet spot which every HR person or every leader wants to arrive at. And once you find that sweet spot, you've been able to balance what you can give to your employees and how can you match it to the employer's expectation. So I think those are my thoughts on this.
Beautiful, I loved it. A very, very inherent need of any human mankind, or for that matter of fact, even which are bodies which are run by mankind, is reward, recognition, and celebration. How does this impact future workplaces, Suraj? What's your view on that?
Sure. So before I get into the specific response to this question, I'll probably build on the context for a minute. I drive Creta SX, a manual version, and it struck me. That's the reason I'm trying to share, right? Like when you pedal on the accelerator, when you start driving on the highway or wherever it could be, the speedometer warns you that you have to change the gear. You agree? And what we are doing right now in this forum is all about that. I think I've seen attending such conferences both the side, right? People do come here, have a good engagement, good cocktail parties, right? And you scribble down notes also, but once you leave the room, I've seen many a times you leave your notes pad on the table and you go. And you go back into the mundane role once tomorrow, next day. You hope you realize from where I'm coming. While coming from the airport, I was reading a book, okay, by Simon Sinek, which is Start With Why. Keep this two premise in the mind. I think what would be our endeavor and what the takeaways from this session, wherein each one of you in this room go back and try and bring that change on the ground for self and for the organization, the corporates and the country would benefit of the same. And that's probably just to build on it because I've sensed it and I wanted to be very passionate about sharing this. That's one. Now, but the question what is asked about, right? Like it's about, and there's emptied a number of research which states that if you have a employee engagement, you talk about Gallup or Forbes, you talk about, right? Like that such organizations 200% better than where there's no engagement happens on the ground. Okay. Now keep that aside, right? When we're trying to keep people in the center, let's go back in the last 20 years. 3 times recession hit us. 8 to 9 years, that's what we sense, right? And I'll give an example of that. Since you're driving right now and you have to change again. And you have to keep that why premise in the mind. And at the end of the day, it's people. We have seen the VUCA world and post-COVID world. It's only people who can make, break, and transform any organization. If that being the premise, it's a moral responsibility of the organization to take care of them, right? And post the COVID, the realization from an incumbent standpoint, by they losing their family members and they hearing so much of sad news, right? Like during the Delta 2 and all that. And I think it's extremely important. People started having the meaning of life, meaning in terms of they're trying to talk about more of purpose. So organization need to align with the same. So that is the premise when I build on it. Yes, indeed. Rewards and recognition, the technology are the enablers. I see 100 such names, right? But at the end of the day, what is the crux is, we have to drive that on ground. It's at the end of the day, this technology would be used by the people, right? How do we handhold my leadership to sensitize, to get this driven on ground? I think that's also premise. I think wearing that hat of employee value proposition, why somebody would join any organization is predominantly for the kind of culture, the employee well-being overall as a subject, right? All the aspects, talking from emotional well-being to physical well-being to financial and so on and so forth. So yes, technology would remain, but what is important is we being an enablers, we need to make sure that we get that executed on ground. And it's all about we hand-holding our leaders to do, because the first person, the engagement manager, is actually the line manager of the incumbent. If you don't hand-hold the incumbent appropriately, whatever you're talking about, like rewards, recognition, so on, would not got under the knee.
So true, Suraj, and that's how I'm also a firm believer that in future of workplaces, reward will have certainly a place.
Indeed.
And you know, it's well said. It reminds me of a quotation, long back that I read when I went to Kolkata and I visited Mother Teresa's museum. It said that in today's world, the hunger is more for love and affection, less for bread. And that's the reality. If we see what's happening around the world with so much of war and other things. Let's now go to the next subject and understand a little bit. There are so many surveys that are happening on LinkedIn. There's so many platforms, and very, very boring, but a very often question asked is, and it's asked to employees, in the future of workplace, would you like to work from home, work from office, or hybrid? And when you take that survey, you very often realize that it's work from home, which is taking the highest toll on that poll. You know, my next question comes, Vishpala, to you from that aspect, that in so much of individualism that is happening, so much of ask of employees, and then there is a board pressure, then there is every day in the newspaper that this company is calling employees back at work, and that. How do you see future workplaces, and how do you adapt as a company to such kind of very, very strange demands and different stakeholders putting different kind of pressures?
So actually, Raj, I'm a firm believer of change, right? So maybe 10 years ago when this demand of working from home was there, because we all know like 3 years ago, the change curve was not there, right? Versus today, everyone wants to probably work in this hybrid model. But I think it's it's two-sided. I mean, there's a role that the employee plays, there's a role that the organization plays. I think the role of the organization is to keep abreast what's happening, what are your employees wanting. So if you take the example of hybrid, right? I had this interesting conversation with an HR person, right? A colleague, a peer, to actually ask me saying that, do you in HR work hybrid? Do you actually work remote? And my answer was yes. They're like, but do you really work, you and your team? I'm like, yes. So I think somewhere to also understand that HR employees are also employees, right? I mean, it does not mean that the ones who set policies will not do what everybody could do. So, I mean, I'm giving this example because there's a role that organizations have to recognize, have to be bold. Because we spoke about culture, we spoke about, I think there is the tone that has to be set at the top. So for everyone, it's clear. What is the vision? What is the mission? What is the values of this organization? So for employees when they're walking in, firstly, I think it's a two-way street. So today the company is evaluating the employee as much as the employee is evaluating the company. So I think I kind of lost your question somewhere in my response, but I think change is good for both organizations and employees, and I think it's a two-way street where they have to come and meet.
Absolutely, and I think this change is what, as HR leaders, we sometimes try to demystify and give it back to the people when it's happening around us. And one of the change that is happening, that's also called as Google Killer, and I was thinking that whether I'll speak this here or not, but I think it does bring this thought again back to my mind, is AI. And we know what is happening with ChatGPT and so many other platforms that are coming in. What's your view, Aarti, how this artificial intelligence in the future of workplace is going to impact the entire employee experience, yet make it individual, authentic, and personalized?
Sure. So yeah, technology teenagers is what I like to call myself, and the Gen Z. They are technology teenagers today. We heard somebody saying that they adopt everything very fast. So what does AI do to our jobs, especially in HR? Once we start automating, any of our processes, any of our workflows, what we are actually leading to is augmentation of HR capability. So the second A, where automation is augmenting our capability and ultimately helping us to smoothen life, process, work, everything. Now, when we talk about AI, there are a few examples. All of us would have experienced, AI in some form or the other. We all have Alexa, we hear about Siri. What are these? These are virtual assistants. They are basically trying to tell us or help us, with just speech, trying to give solutions and answers to us. Automation of repetitive tasks is something which is really going to build value. So a lot of HR aspects are very repetitive in nature. We all have FAQs, we have processes, we have policies. A lot of organizations are now using chatbots to look at automating that part so that the administrative, repetitive part of it is taken care of, and we then devote our time into better aspects of deep thinking, critical thinking, building relationships, creativity. Those are the skills which, unfortunately or fortunately, artificial intelligence cannot replicate. So then we are taking that part away. We also see a lot of AI in all of our processes actually. You see from recruitment, onboarding, chatbots are helping us to do that. We are also getting a lot of screening, resumes, schedulings, etc. happening through AI. I mean, outside in the booths, we'd have probably 10 to 12 players who are displaying how that mundane, repetitive work can be taken off the shoulders of HR people and how we can then augment our capabilities in a better fashion, in a better way. Some of the new things that I haven't experienced but I've heard about is there is an AI which does minutes of meeting. So they dial in like us into a call, and they would record the meeting. After the meeting is over, all the minutes would be there in your inbox. Doesn't that really,
True.
take away a lot of our burden? We have something called a Skype translator, which removes the language barrier, which is basically, if you're working across geographies and there are languages that you're not familiar with, They will help you translate, understand, and do those calls effectively. They can actually even send like 500 languages instant messages. So, the way technology can enable us is beautiful, and how it can help us do our works, probably the future is going to be very, very different from how we work today.
True. It reminds me of a small little software that I used when I was working from home. Crisp AI, I have a small little son, and in every meeting, I don't know how, but he'll get to know there's a meeting about to start, and he'll exactly come at the same time. And then I put that software, and after that, I realized it was only my voice that somebody could hear on the other side. So, absolutely agree with you. Last two questions, and very quick answer from you, Suraj and Natasha. First to you, Suraj, over.
Okay.
We spent so much of money, like last 2.5 years on well-being. What do you think in the future of work, well-being going to look like? And how do you calculate actually ROI on it?
Okay, so let's again wear the cap of employee value proposition. Why anybody and everybody is joining any organization? We have so much of data, people do research on Indeed, check with here. I think post the pandemic, I think what is the need is people are actually looking for an organization where they feel being heard, being valued for the contribution they are doing, and they see a meaning in what the role, and with a very high sense of purpose. So predominantly that is, and we talk about overall well-being, it starts from probably physical, we did discuss about FitPass, I think we had a good conversation there. Mental, I think we've been discussing since morning, so I'm not going to spend more time there in it. But I think the premise remains same, okay. But now from the question on ROI, I have a very strong point of contention. I'll probably give some context around it. I'm sure you heard about something called Hertzberg theory of motivation, right? So it does have two aspects to it. One is hygiene, second is motivator. Now well-being, now anybody and everybody, irrespective of the size of the organization, are looking for that the organization should take care of me when I join, isn't it? And it's again about mindset. It's again about the mindset that, so well-being is actually a hygiene now for the organization, and we need to wear that cap, and you have to make sure that that's get inculcated on the ground. So, so as a return on investment, yeah, probably I'll not say return on investment, it's a value of investment, a softer aspect, yes, if the people are happy, motivated, definitely it will help in that turnover. People who probably we can save on the health cost because people would be happy, they'll not fall sick. And there could be many more such, they will be definitely productive, there could be many more such advantage. But as a return on investment, the moment you think about it, then every year when you go to the board meeting and you say that you spend 20 lakhs on employee assistance program, and we have only had 0.5% of my utilization, and do we need to reduce that? I think that should not be the context. This is a necessity, and it's an investment which organization need to do by design. That's the only thing.
Absolutely, and I think it does have a place in future workplaces too, so well-being is here to stay. My last question to you, Natasha, is that so much has been talked about, we see in around us, infusion of technology that's happening for the future workplaces. Let's talk the flip side of it and understand from you, what are the challenges or limitations that you will feel as CHROs we would face in the future of work? So what's your on that?
Okay, sorry, I know we're conscious about time and we are between lunch and us. I think one of the things as challenges, and the first and foremost for me is, there we go, leadership commitment. So if the organizations or the leaders are not committed to make employee experience at the heart of things that we want to do, it's not going to work. So that's the first and foremost that I'm going to refer to, and I'm not going to take more time on it, but I think the first is commitment of our leaders to make it a priority. Whether hybrid or not hybrid, that's the most important aspect.
Thank you so much. Any question from the audiences, one or two questions that we can take?
Hi everyone. So I think the last question was really close to my heart, and I'm so sorry the time was not enough, but you see, there's already a pressure of hybrid versus non-hybrid. Those who are non-hybrid or working from offices, they've started to kind of, taking the majority, and there is a pressure, you are still hybrid. So how do you think, I'm sure, all of you will be following some model, one or the other, but those who still want to do hybrid and they still want to be flexible, there will be pressure on those organizations. COVID hypothetically is over, more or less. So how do we sustain the hybridism in the workplace and still being seen as, being productive and employees being contributing. That's the challenge practically we've started to face, right? So the question is, how do we go further and sustain the hybrid with a lot of pressure coming in? Oh, tum to office nahi aate ho, ghar se kaam karte ho, right? So that has already started coming in. How do we handle that, according to you?
I'll just probably take very short one. The reason is the industry where I belong currently for the last 10 months, okay, is the healthcare, okay. So by design, you can never go hybrid. I mean, definitely if you talk about the proportion of people, we have 50% of our manpower is nursing community, okay. And so we had only around 8 to 10% of people who are actually my admin staff, right? Yes, we understand the nuances because their peers, their friends and so on and so forth, the people are actually working with other industries. But we try and give that flexibility on ground, that we intend to provide them people who can able to manage by themselves. That's a shorter one.
Sure. I'd only say one thing, that it's here to stay, whether somebody likes it or not, either employees or employer.
Agree.
One, it's here to stay. Accepted hybrids are the future. The second is there'll be more technology in the time coming ahead, which you will see, which will take this away altogether. Like if you really ask me, I don't know years together, why we have only Web 2.0 version of HRMS that we use. So there has been a progression if you look at it, from HRIS it became HRMS, and now HRMSs are becoming EXPs, which is Employee Experience Portal, and EXP at some point of time is becoming DEX, which is Digital Employee Experience Portals. Now, there will be technologies like blockchain, which would validate even if you're working from home, whatever you have worked well. I know I'm talking a little ahead of time in this forum, but I'm a part of Forbes Council, and we do discuss such forums, such technologies which are coming ahead, in which you'll be able to identify and quantify what work you have done. And this notion of bad employees sitting from home or working from home or whatever you are trying to, and I agree, I understand the sentiment that you're coming in from, that will go away. That is one. Second, there are career choices which are coming, which are work from home only. So you make a choice. There are a lot of employees who are quite quitting right now, who are career cushioning and making an alternate career move at the same time that they are in, so that they can have better quality of life in different avenues. Third, believe you me, there are boardroom conversations in which they have accepted the reality that hybrids are here to stay. But yeah, it's a long topic, but second well is up. Third well is up, so no. But we can talk about it for sure. Yeah. Thank you so much to all the audience and to the panelists. Really appreciate this forum and you joining us for this.